So I'm sure you will not be able to read my PowerPoints. It doesn't matter too much. My PowerPoints are more to avoid me to help me remember everything, you know, and also to be able to be read by anybody when you read the PowerPoint. So the main point here is when you observe an innovation, what could be very useful is to distinguish, you know, invention, innovation, and reception. Invention is close to creativity. Innovation is the most difficult part of innovation. It's a process. It's a social process. And it is based on many, many struggles between many actors inside big companies. For instance, I think for 2008, struggles are stronger between R&D and marketing departments, for instance. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm only saying if we want to understand why an invention becomes an innovation, we have to understand that the success is based on all these pre-digital networks, not only digital networks, and also from the R&D department to the distribution, for instance, to the supermarket. And reception is another step. I will not develop a lot about the reception here, which is my main focus. Reception means I'm a consumer, and there is something new, a new technology, a new service, a new something, which has been introduced into my home. And I have to deal with that. And most often there are many conflicts. Not always, but most often there are many conflicts between men and women, parents and children, and so on. For instance, when I interview people in China, I know cosmetics is a very conflictual topic. Maybe you know or you don't know, but it's a very interesting social norm that in China, officially, it is forbidden to make up for children, for young women, you know, until 18. At school, it is forbidden. Of course, nowadays, it is possible to observe that young people are making up, you know, outside the school, but it is forbidden. And if a woman uses too much cosmetics, for instance, it could be seen as a prostitute. So it's a very strong. I tried to give you some small examples to say why it is important to observe these social process. Invention is an incremental transgression or a rupture. It's very difficult to distinguish these two innovations. The main point is if we want to understand why there are many opposition to something new, it's because something new is a transgression. And if it is a transgression, it means it's a rupture. It means it's a risk. I show you just here. That is why when I work inside a big company, I think the most important problem are not about the consumers, but are about, you know, the conflict between all the departments. So from my point of view, a conflict is normal. I don't like conflicts, but I think it is important to make a difference between what we like and what is reality. Reality is based on many conflicts, and conflicts are more important for 5 years, for instance, in France, because of the economical crisis. When it doesn't work very well, conflicts are used to increase. So one of my first opening conclusion, I don't like the word conclusion because I think life is not based on conclusion. Life is based on opening something. One of my main opening conclusion, and sometimes what I'm saying is quite evident for you. I'm sorry for that, but it's just to think about. Is that nowadays, the process of innovation itself requires innovations. I mean, we have to change the way we have been used to innovate. And one of the way to do that, because it's in practice, this is easier said than done. One of the way to do that is to focus more on the consumer. I'm just saying it's one way because it's a very anthropological way, and so I don't want to say that anthropology is the best method. It's not my point of view. It's only to say it is one way, and I've been doing that with Chanel and Laurent. It works very well. It's to, I would say, during a moment, you forget your brand. Don't think about your brand too much. Don't think about, technology, but go into the home, into the place where consumers are doing the practices you want to understand here, cosmetics or body care. I have many. If you go to YouTube, for instance, you will find a nice movie. I mean, nice from an anthropological point of view. A movie about Carrefour in Guangzhou. Guangzhou, the big city canton in south of China, and you can observe how we observe something new in a big city like Guangzhou. What is a new supermarket? And when I start a field study, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going to. It's a very inductive method, and I have my camera, and I speak with the guy who is in charge of the supermarket, and I am discovering everything, and I discuss to be explained all the things which I am discovering with the guy. And so innovation, I try to be. The main point here, innovation is a rough process. And there is a gap between the moment of creativity, which is quite fluid, quite enthusiastic, and the energy you have to develop during the social process of innovation. And the main problem I have is when I come back to my client with the data about, the consumer practices at home. The main problem I have is how to show to my client the reality of life without making his or her energy disappear. So because we need to have a lot of energy. I'm talking about human energy, not only electricity or gas and so on, or wood. I've been working on energy for 30 years now. I think it's a very, very interesting topic. But here we are talking about individuals, about social actors who needs a lot of energy. And sometimes anthropological results are going against this energy because sometimes we say there are too many constraints. And I will show you at the end some constraints. I go to another point, which is reception. Reception as a collective route of decisions and use of the invention. When I work on the consumer phase of innovation, I try to understand how consumers are deciding to do something, to buy something, and I will show you a short scheme to show how they choose. But it's a collective and a kind of route, what I call itinerary method. And it works very well to understand where is the problem, to explain why the product, the service will succeed or not. That is the first itinerary method. And the main point here, you understand, it's a kind of, it's an image, of course, a kind of representation. We start with R&D. Doesn't matter the name it is nowadays, R&D, C&D, doesn't matter. Most often, this step is built outside a big company in a small business company and so on. And then, we start with a molecule, for instance, then it becomes something different in the laboratory, and then it becomes something different with marketing. Here is something very interesting. There is a very difficult word, which is transubstantiation, which means how to transform a normal product, a normal thing into something marvelous or enchanted. And then we go to the distribution, and then we go inside the home, and then we look where products are tie-dyed or used and waste and so on. So at each step, it is possible to understand if there is something positive or negative to the development of the invention into innovation into reception. And now I will show you by photos what is quite interesting to understand when we work in Brazil, in China, maybe more than in France or the UK or Germany or the US, maybe quite interesting when we work in former Eastern Europe, is all the logistical and material culture you need to understand before launching a new market. And for instance, you have to understand, in China, I take an example to be clear. In China, like in many countries, we have social classes. And when I say social classes, it means, you know, a big difference between the mother and the younger. It depends, of course. But what is interesting when you work in the world of cosmetics, it's a world of women. The only moment, I say the only moment by quotation, the only moment I found a man in the social process of using cosmetics is between 10 and 14, because it's a very conflictual moment in the life cycle. This is the first example I like very much. I found it in a strip cartoon, and it was during the Cultural Revolution. Most of the haircuts were forbidden. The only one, you can see the blue circle, the only one which was allowed was strict haircut. And there is one or two which is very, very funny. For instance, when you look at on the right, there is a guy with a mustache. And in Chinese, the form of the mustache means ba, which means 8. But it also means the mustache, which was the mustache of a private tutor in wealthy family. So it was a sign of bourgeoisie. And so it was a forbidden mustache. So we understand the link between politics and beauty. And when I say politics, I'm not talking about ideology. I'm just talking about social norms in this case. And now, what is very interesting, and I think in many, many countries, I try to understand, depending on the country, which are the parts of the body which are allowed to be staged. And for instance, about 15 years ago, I was doing a field study about piercing in France, and I went to London to interview some people about piercing. And in London, it was very casual to have piercing. You say piercing, but I'm not sure my accent in English. How do you say? Piercing? Piercing. In France, many places were forbidden. Sex, belly, les seins, I forgot the name in English, maybe feet and so on. 10 years later, all these places were permitted. You understand the interest to understand these three norms, and they are moving very fast sometimes. You know what is permitted, what is prescribed, what is forbidden. And that is a very interesting insight to understand why your new product will work or not. So I'm not talking about psychology. I'm not talking about, advertising. I'm not talking about design. And I've been working with psychologists, designer, ergonom, and so on, and advertiser too. But I'm talking from, it's another angle in order to open your eye when it is useful. If it is not useful, don't use anthropology, because I'm sure it's not useful at each time. And here we observe that if we compare with the Cultural Revolution now, it's possible for wealthy people to stage the eyes, here is about face, the whole body, about teeth, about feet, about nails, all parts of the body who was forbidden 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before. And why it is interesting to understand that? Because all people, the equivalent of Papi Boomer in China, are against all these cosmetics products. So there is a conflict. 5 minutes? Yep. It's perfect. I can stop now. And here is something different. I wanted to show you two very typical Chinese objects. The first is about, how to become rich, wealthy, thanks to the red fish. It's very useful if you have an aquarium with a red fish. And the other is a prescribed norm to have, this kind of bicycle in your living. But I only found this kind of bicycle in very wealthy people. Then it is here to explain how to train people. And the symbolic dimension of beauty, this one is very, very classical. Maybe you know this well-known Chinese actress, Zhang Ziyi. And you look, and you can see, black hair, pale face, lipstick, slim figure, the V shape of the face, and so on. It's a very classical beauty, which means, beauty is linked, or there is a link between the inside and the outside of the body. If you are a beautiful woman, it means you also are a good people. There is a moral dimension of beauty. And so I will not develop this, which is very interesting, which is the image of beauty in China is based on ambivalence, perpetual movement, and there is a beautiful Chinese character, qi. Everybody knows what is qi, which means, energy, air, and so on. And also, the use of cosmetics depends on the situation. And that's very interesting to understand why, for instance, a woman will not use cosmetics at home during the weekend because she is afraid by the mother-in-law, because if the woman is making up, the mother-in-law will think, oh, my daughter-in-law is looking for another man than my only son, because she only has one son. And she is very careful. My wife is Jewish, and sometimes I think Chinese women like Jewish mother, it's quite, there's no big difference. It's a private joke, of course. And here, it's just to finish with Symbolic. This is a picture, images we had in New York with my colleague, Patricia Sunderland, who is an anthropologist and who has a small business. We work together. And just to show you, we are working on mineral cosmetic, mineral product, which is a beautiful products. And here you understand the effect, the representation, of course, of this product for women before and after, before on the right and after on the left. It's a big change. It's the same on the picture on the right. So before mineral cosmetic, it's terrible. Cosmetic is very bad for the skin and so on. But thanks to the mineral product, it works very well. And they have a beautiful skin. We are, of course, at the level of representation. And now I will go to here. I think this is a tool. It's a kit. Very useful. You can use it everywhere for any product. It doesn't work for each item, but it works very well. You only have to think, if I want to launch a new product, I have three main constraints: material constraint, social constraint, and symbolic constraint. And maybe there is one of these which is very strong and which is working against my new product. So material is very easy to understand. Time, space, budget is not difficult to understand. One which is more anthropological tool is the system of concrete objects necessary for use of the new product or service. So that is a good example. When you think about the bathroom, you need to have water, you need to have electricity, you need to have a bathroom, you understand what I mean? If I work in sub-Saharan Africa, there is no water, there is no energy. You see, it's more difficult to develop. For instance, if I want to buy an electric hair something. Have some more? Yeah. And it's more because there is no electricity. But now, if I want to sell a mobile phone, it's easier because we have a lot of small, battery, which can use sun. Social and psychological constraint, there is one which is very interesting, which is mental burden. If your new product increase the stress or the anxiety sometimes of the people, it's much more difficult to develop it. I remember once I was working, a huge software for small farmers, and we needed about 3 days to enter all the data. Too much time. And people were very stressed with this software, so it didn't work. It's normal. But it could be the same with some cosmetic products, you know. Sometimes it's difficult to use. When I shot, you know, people using mascara, some are very good. You can observe. And I just tell you something very interesting for me. I think it was as difficult for me to work on witchcraft in sub-Saharan Africa and to work on cosmetics and body care about women. I think for a man, I don't know if I'm a regular man, understanding cosmetics, body care, and so on, for it's very, very strange. It's a kind of exotic social phenomenon. Think about that. And because when the woman is in the bathroom, most often we are not there because, I don't know, it depends on the country. But in many, it's like when I think about cooking. In France, cooking is a kind of mystery. That is why most of kitchens are outside the living. In the US, it is not a mystery, because maybe there is no mystery, maybe, I don't know. And maybe in France there is a mystery. And it's quite the same. So my English is not too bad. It was to make a joke. I'm not, I like to go to the US, I like American food, but sometimes, you know. And I was very... It's finished? It's finished? Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, it's finished.
But if we could invite some questions from the audience, please. And could you tell us who you are and where you're from?
And talk slowly for me, because I don't know if it's my ears or my English.
There's a microphone here which we can bring down.
There is a question.
Got a question at the back here.
To the back. And the microphone is to the front.
Perhaps if we could use the microphone.
Yeah, microphone. It's tricky how to use the microphone.
Roberto Leonardi from Italy. Being a regular man, do you think that we from a family of hairdresser and barbers could put cosmetics in a less exotic way for you?
You talk about baby?
Hairdresser and barber.
Oh yeah, it's as exotic.
If you come from an hairdresser and barber family,
it's as exotic.
Maybe cosmetics could be less exotic for you.
No, it's not less exotic. And when I say exotic, it means it's very important to have somebody for whom it is exotic. You know, what is very interesting for me, I think it's a part of the method. Most often, I don't know anything about the product on which I am asked to make or to do a qualitative study. And so sometimes I find some evidence. But most often, as I am another angle of observation, I can ask something different from somebody who is a professional and who knows very well, you know, how to deal with brass or with cosmetics and so on. So it's only a joke to say it is important to be an outsider of the field if we want to innovate. The only point I have in my mind now is I've been working for, I don't know, for many, maybe 100, 200 big companies, you know, or small businesses. I'm not sure people, they are saying they want to innovate. I'm not sure they want to innovate. There is a big gap between what we say and what we do because to the social constraint. And exotic means I'm an outsider, and so maybe I will not understand some very evident reality for women or for professional, but maybe also I will understand something quite different because I'm an outsider. That's the main point.
Let's take just one more question, please.
Hello, Jim Conroy from Sofion. Very interesting presentation. Thank you very much. One of the comments you made, innovation, not primarily from consumers, rather from the way in which companies function,
Yeah.
which may encourage or hinder the innovation process. And I was wondering if you can give us some insights from company perspective that you have in terms of successful innovation, some of the key characteristics of that.
There are 2 points. Thank you very much for your nice comment, of course. And the first point is, most often, I don't know the effect of my field study because it is mixed in a big company. And most of my clients are in the R&D departments. And I don't know after that what my field study is going to become inside a big company. The second point was an experience with a big company. And I was presented my result from in France, I think. And we succeeded in gathering R&D, some people from marketing, which is very difficult to put together these two kinds of people, and also a lawyer. And the lawyer was very interesting for me, because everything was impossible. You see what I mean? And I have the same problem in my university. When I want to do something, it's impossible. So I have to find something different to control, the lawyer. So the lawyer was something new for me to understand, how important it is to understand. And they were right in some way. But it was very difficult to innovate because, or thanks to, the lawyer. And also, I discovered by doing many field study, the importance of, I don't know the word in English, the guy who is controlling the contrôleur de gestion in French. I don't know the word, the guy who is controlling the budget of every department. Yeah. And he's very, or she, or he, very important. I remember one with a big company in do-it-yourself. I discussed about 2 hours with him in Venice. It was a nice place, very chic, for anthropologists anyway. And I discovered how important it was in the process of innovation. And the third is the guy who is in charge of the plant, the industry, the product. And once we discussed with one guy, he looked at the new design, and he told us, it's okay, I will not have to change my machines, my devices, so it doesn't cost a lot. So we understand, by looking at all these small details, why an innovation, an invention, which could be very clever, very useful, does not succeed, because of all these social actors who have a specific logic of action.
Thank you very much, Dominique. Dominique, are you here for the next 2 days? Are you here?
No, unfortunately, I have some...
I know some
I am to leave tonight.
I know some of the rest of you have questions in the audience, so
Yeah.
I would encourage you to talk to Dominique.
So we can meet together.
Or in the lunch hour later.
I just want to add, I enjoy a lot to come here. I saw to Irina. I'm very proud to be invited. Thank you to Chantal, because I think it's very interesting to talk with people who are very involved into, the process of innovation, which is the most difficult process I know. Thank you very much.